So I want you guys to write this down. Sales is a process of overcoming resistance, right? Sales is a process of overcoming resistance. Now what does that mean? In terms of what we do, right? We have resistance with clients the minute that we meet them, right? The minute we're talking to them, the minute we're going through them. And they have resistance in things like market, being sold, commission, fear, anxiety, making the wrong decision. But that's the key part. And what do you think the number one thing that creates resistance? What's the number one thing that creates resistance? With clients, buyers, sellers, leads, whatever it may be. What's the number one thing that creates resistance? Number one thing to create resistance in the sales process is you. What does that mean?
We make our own objections because we're hesitant on what we say.
So the number one thing that creates resistance is you. And specifically, it comes down to a few different things, right? All that's created by you. Something you said, something you didn't say, something you did energetically, something you didn't do energetically, how you show up, right? And so what's happening is subconsciously, they're mirroring you, and they're judging you and scoring you and everything that you say and you do. Now, to multiply that, they're coming in with a place of fear and anxiety because they don't want to be what? Sold. So their attention is heightened, their adrenaline is heightened, and so a lot of times they're reading and studying you, and the way you react is what determines the resistance or not. Make sense? And so our job as salespeople is to do what?
Overcome the resistance.
Reduce resistance and overcome the resistance, right? It's very, very important that we break that down overall. And so to them, I want you to write this down, that resistance equals protection. Resistance equals protection. So for most consumers, the resistance they have is not personal. It's not that they're mean or mad, right? Some of the most angry people I've dealt with were just what? Scared, right? They're just scared to be sold. They've had a bad instance before. They were done wrong before. And so they tend to just, and it gets crazy how people start to have this resistance and fear, and it multiplies over and over and over. And all of a sudden you have this thing where people have their skepticism. I'll just like say plus time, plus experience equals their resistance, and they have. The more that goes on, the more resistance you get. And so you have to understand they come into this with a high level of skepticism, and so the more we're able to overcome that with our certainty, with our ability to overcome that, the better we're going to be. Okay, so how do we do that? What does that look like? What creates the most resistance? When the salesperson's focused on the money, not the person. All resistance I see comes down to me. Most of y'all, it's going to be your level of skill set. They're judging the beginning on how good your skill set is. Your certainty in the presentation, your certainty in the conversation, the way you flow in your words. All those things matter in terms of your presentation. They're scoring you, even your follow-up. So what do you think the other main ones I get from people are? When they want out of agreement? Buyer or seller side? What's the number one complaint? I don't hear back. Number one, I haven't heard from the agent. Who created that? The agent did, right? Number two, I don't hear back from the agent. You created that, right? And so what's happened is as their skepticism and time go on, what happens to resistance? It gets higher. And so the more they're left there in the skepticism, the more things happen, the more they talk to people, the more that the resistance builds, the more difficult it is for you to convert the deal. Make sense? And so, for example, yesterday, one of the complaints you had too, hey, agent's voicemail is filled up. Now, what does that make somebody believe? They don't answer their telephone for anybody, so now they must be really terrible. This is basic stuff, right? That we have to make sure. So what matters the most? Speed response, having basic things done like text messaging back, logging the calls, making sure that my voicemail is not full. Those are things that all matter, and we all create resistance for ourselves. Okay? And there's two ways to this. One's through the sales cycle, which is that example, just real-time example. But most of that comes in the face-to-face presentation. How do I show up energetically? What's my tonality like? How do I deliver my words? What's my flow like? That's what matters the most in terms of how we do this. And so once you guys realize that I create that. And so one big thing that makes a shift is when I shift it from really a service first sell. What does that mean, you think? A service first sell. Yeah, so I want to make sure I'm focused on service. Here's the main thing, right? What creates the most resistance in the salesperson's focus on the money, not the person. When the salesperson's focused on the money, not the person. What does that mean? This happens a lot in the beginning. They can feel the commission breath, right? And so what's happening is you're desperate for a deal. You already counted that. You spent the last deal in your head, right? And then the deal fell through, and so now you need it. And what happens is they can feel it. And so you have to make sure you don't come across that way, especially in the beginning, because you need money, right? You need to get through the hump, and so it's important to understand that. And so what happens when they're focused on the contract and not solving the problem? The resistance comes when the agent focuses on the contract and not solving the problem. And what fixes all this and what reduces resistance the most is when I focus the most on what?
Service. Helping them.
Deeper. The problem. That's why I'm so big on pain. What's the pain? What's the pain? What's the pain, right? What's the problem they have? What's the problem I'm trying to solve? Because if I can get deep enough in the problem and let them experience the pain, they want help in what? In solving it, right? That's something super important for us to make sure we're doing there. And so you're a field salesperson who care about the money, right? The second thing you can feel a lot of times is the salesperson who cared more about the process than you. What does that mean, you think? This happens a lot with analytical people. The salesperson cares more about the process than they do about you. What does that mean? Yeah. You see that a lot, right? They order analyze things, or they're just so features and benefits focused that the person's left out the conversation. I'll say it again. They're so featured and benefit focused that the person's left out of the conversation. You have to make sure that you make sure it's relatable to them and what? Their problem. Everything I talk about in my presentation has to be linked to what? Their pain, their problem, and how it's going to solve it. Otherwise, what you're talking about becomes irrelevant. And so if I don't know deep enough pain and problem in my discovery, and I'm just pitching them on the presentation, then a lot of times they're going to disengage, they're going to get numb in the mind and just not hear anything you're saying. And then they're going to tell us at the end, hey, look, that person was just rambling, right? So it's important for us to understand that we can go in deep here. Now, what does our presentation do really, really well that no one else does? So one thing I want you guys to write, money is a result, not the mission. Money is a result, not the mission. What does that mean? The money's only the byproduct if I can get the mission accomplished, right? I can't focus on the money. I got to focus on the mission. And so for me to have that, I got to go much deeper in that in terms of how I do it. I want you guys to write this. Service is the mission. Now, a lot of people in the beginning aren't naturally like that because you came in the business to make some money, right? You're brand new. You got a certain amount of time to make it, or you've been here for a while. And so people tend to look at it as transactional, which can be a problem. And so how do I make myself be service-based? Focus. Number one, it takes a decision. Sounds easier than it is, but I got to make a decision. Hey, no matter what, I'm going to be service-focused, not money-focused, right? Second part, I have to make sure I practice it. Meaning what? It's going to take a few reps and time. I just learn to go deeper on the pain. I quit focusing on the money. I have to train my brain not to look at the money, to look at the person and look at the problem. And as that gets more regular to you and you get used to it, it becomes easier and easier. And guess what happens to the money? It starts to flow. Once I got in business and I didn't care about money anymore, and I didn't care about, if they did business with me or not, what happened to the business? It went up like crazy because my certainty was there and I didn't need them. I wasn't coming from a place of neediness. If you come from a place of neediness, you push them away. From a place of certainty and attractiveness, it brings it in. And that's what's super important in that. And so here's the key part, right? Take the money out of the equation, focus on the service, right? That's where it matters. And so that's the key part of what you guys have. And so when I focus on service first, here's what happens. The client feels understood. They feel like they're actually heard. Why? They feel you focus on them, right? They feel you coming into them. They feel you going deep into their pain, their problems, their issues. And the questions you ask help expose feelings that they have put away and that they are now reliving due to your openness and you trying to learn from them. Does that make sense? The second thing to do is now they feel heard. A lot of times agents just pitch them without them feeling what? Heard. Third thing here. They feel safe. 100%, right? Because what do most people have resistance from? They don't feel safe. They may have made bad decisions before. They have a preconceived notion about real estate agents. They have a preconceived notion about you based on the way you look, based on the way you talk, based on your age, based on whatever it is. They're judging based on that. And so that's the key part here. And then the fourth most important piece here is now the prospect trusts you. So it's a high-ticket item with a long sales cycle, which is why we have to have these four things in here, right? Number one, they feel understood. Number two, they feel heard. Number three, they feel safe. Number four, they trust you. And those are obviously in order of what they do, which makes a big difference. And so that's the key part. And that's also backed by behavioral science. When people buy, when they feel understood, they feel respected, and the outcome matters more than the cost. I'll say it again. People buy based on science. When they feel understood, they feel respected, and they feel the outcome matters more than the cost. And that's something that's super important with our clients in terms of helping do that overall. Okay, I want you guys to write this down too. Communication is nothing more than a transference of energy between two people. What does that mean?
All about your energy.
You basically just have words going back and forth while your subconscious mind, their subconscious mind is judging you. Period. Is this guy, is this girl, is this lady doing what she said she's going to do, or is she just... And a lot of times, some of the feedback is they feel like, oh, they were just a salesperson, they were just salesy. What does that mean?
They don't trust you.
They don't trust you, and they feel like you're just going through the motions. And so that goes back down to what? An energy thing. Of how do I slow down to have my conversation? How do I look them in the eyes? How do I hear what they're saying and ask a deeper question that's relevant to the first question? Does that make sense? And so have to be really good at doing that in that scenario. And so here's the key part. Prospects don't resist money, they resist fear. And so what that means is, right, the fear of being sold, the fear of being taken advantage of, or really they lose or make a wrong decision. And so we always want to make sure that we're solving the problem before we talk price. And so that's something that we do pretty much, but you got to make sure that you're actually solving the real problem before price. On the listing side, if I go deep about it, right, and I solve the real problem, what do you think happens in terms of the price part, right? So they don't really worry about price as much if we talk about the true problem and the true pain, and I show what? A solution of it. And so that's a key part. Here's what I want you to write this down too. Price is not an issue when you're solving the big problem. Price is not an issue when you're solving the big problem. Most of the challenges we face with salespeople, and our salespeople a lot of time is they're doing what? You're solving the small problem. You're solving the problem they told you about in discovery at question number 1 or question number 2. You're not solving the deeper problem that's in question number 4 of the 4th level of questions. The one they're scared to tell you, the one they're not really telling you, the one how they had a fight multiple times and slept in separate bedrooms because of the living situation, right? Those are the type of things you have to figure out and be able to help solve. Because if I can find that problem out and solve that problem, that's what makes people move. Does that make sense? And you have to be skeptical in the first 2 answers. Why? Because people aren't going to give you the real answer. And here's what, if I decided to say like my 20 years experience, you say something that's weak in the beginning, your tonality, something doesn't flow, and they judge you really quick in the beginning, they turn you off. That's it. And so that's why you have to be sharp as attack from the very beginning, and your scripts have to be on point. You have to be able to overcome objection because that's what happens with them most of the time. Does that make sense? And so here's the deal. Number 1, how do I become a trusted advisor? Number 1, find out the outcome they're looking for. Like what's the true outcome? For us, looking at what? Real problems. So number 1, find the true outcome. The true outcome means like not the one that they're telling me, the one between the lines. How do I do that? Yes, I want to diagnose the real problem. So how do we do that? You have to ask better questions, deeper questions, which are called 2nd and 3rd level questions. Tell me more about that. What was the reason about that? Here's a great leading question for you guys to have. It's a really good writer-downer. What is it that's creating urgency for you to sell right now? Or you can also ask, what is it that's creating urgency for you to buy right now? Another question to ask a lot of times, hey, what was the defining moment that made you guys reach out? That's what I want to know. What happened? Because here's the thing. If you look at a lot of seller submissions online, they're like 1 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning. That means typically what? They're stressed out, staying up at night, working or drinking, right? And so we got to figure out what is it that has them up at night staring at the ceiling, right? That's something that makes a big, big difference to that. And so question number 1, what is it that has you, what is it that's creating urgency for you to buy, sell right now? Number 2, what is it that's worrying the most about buying in this market? What is it that's worrying you the most about buying in this market? What's that going to do? What is that question designed to get? That question is a fear question designed to tell them about what they're fearful of and what? The process or the agent. That would be things like paying too much for the house, the market going down, buying with the wrong agent, whatever it is. You want to make sure you're asking that question, right? Super. And you can do the same thing for sellers. Hey, what is it worrying you the most right now about selling in this current market? And they're going to tell you what it is, which is important. That would be things like what? Days on market. Is it actually going to sell? Do I get the most amount of money for it? You want to make sure you understand that stuff with your questions with your seller. So that's a fear-based question. It's designed to get something. I don't know if this is the 3rd one, I guess. What mistakes is it that you're trying to avoid? What mistakes is it that you're trying to avoid? You can also word it, what mistakes are you trying to avoid in the process, right? Hey, based on what you know so far, what mistakes are you trying to avoid in the process? That's also going to tell you some of their fear and what they're worried about. Why is that important?
So you steer them in the right direction.
That lets me address them in terms of what their true fears are, right? So here's the problem. A lot of presentations are misguided, so I'm going after the wrong fear that they have, the wrong resistance. It's going to tell me what their resistance is, okay? Because their resistance is going to be based on the agent or the situation. Does that make sense? And so that's very, very important. And so number 3, what I'm going to do is establish authority through clarity. Number 3, establish authority through clarity. What does that mean? I've taught this a lot, but The more I can help them get clear on the problem, the more they're going to do what? Trust me, right? My coach used to always tell me, when I know your pain deeper than you do, I own your mind for life. That's what my coach told me. And it's true, right? Because he knew my pain deeper than I did. And I had this pain I couldn't put into words. He helped me put it into words. And all of a sudden I had what? Clarity, which is what I was searching for. And so because of that, I'll follow that person. And so that's something that makes a big, big difference in that. And so next part. So one way to ask a question. I'm going to say, hey, Tim, right? Whatever the name is. Hey, do you want guidance on timing, pricing, or strategy first? Do you want guidance on timing, pricing, or strategy first? What is that helping me do there? How familiar are you with what winning offers look like in this market? How familiar are you with what winning offers look like in this market? That does two things. What's number one, you think? The next question. How familiar are you with the difference of homes that actually get sold versus just listed? How familiar are you with the difference of homes that actually get sold versus listed? And what am I going to aim for there? And number 4, I want to present the path. Present the path. What does that mean? Based upon W, which is what you told me, based on what you told me about whatever their situation is, right? Needing to buy your first house, needing to buy a move-up property, needing to buy investment property, move to Florida, whatever it is. The smartest move is X, which is strategy, because it protects you from Y, which is the problem or their fear. And positions you for Z, which is the outcome. So it's just a frame setup, right? Based on what you told me about making sure that you get to be in Florida by the time your grandkids are born, the smartest move is making sure you list it now and get it priced correctly, because it protects you from the problem or the fear of missing out on seeing your grandchildren born, and positions you to get the most amount of money now before competition hits the market in the spring. Does that make sense? And so now it's just a plug and play word track for you guys to use for both buyers and sellers. But what it does, it uses their own pain against them, their own problem against them, and it helps you build trust, because now you're the expert that guides them through the process. Does that make sense? So based upon W, which is blank, which means what?
What you told me.
What you told me. The smartest move is X, which is what?
Strategy.
The strategy, because it protects you from Y, which is what?
Problem.
The problem or their fear. And it positions you for what? The outcome. And this is a great plug-and-play thing that we're able to have here with them, which makes a big difference, okay? And so that's the key part. And then number 5, the last one, is you want to confirm the alignment. If this strategy gets you X, is that what you're looking for to close? I want to confirm they're with me on this. If this strategy gets you X, which is obviously what they want, is that what you're looking for? Or B, hey, Tim, is this the type of guidance you were looking for? And so what I've done as a true agent, figure out their problem, figure out the real problem, the big problem, show them the way I can guide them through the process, show them how we have an exact roadmap to guide them through the process. And then now I'm confirming the close that they're in alignment with me in what it is. And so the 2 ones, hey, if this strategy gets you X, is that what you're looking for? Or, hey, blank, which is their name, is this the type of guidance you were looking for? And number 6, the money comes last, which is what? The close. The close becomes easy now because I've what?
Solve the problem.
Demonstrated I know the problem at a high level, right? I've earned their trust, earned their ability to understand that I do care about them, and the 4 things we talked about, right? They feel heard, they feel safe, they feel trust, and they also feel understood. I've gone through the process of clarifying for that, showed them how I can guide them through the process based on the plan I've just shown them very quickly. And then now we talk about the money, which, hey, based on what, assuming it comes to agreement on price, do you feel comfortable to handle the sale of your property for you, or on the buy side, the buy close? And then, hey, my strategy protects you and blank. Is it okay if I show you how the process works, or show you how it works, whatever it is? That would be the close for what? Agency. It would be close for writing the offer up, whatever it is in terms of what you're doing. So the main thing is what? Money's the result, not the mission, right? Service is the mission, which is super important for us to have overall. The key thing is you got to make sure we're digging into the real problem, not the surface level problem, which is a big thing to run into. Okay, you want to make sure you're mapping out the outcome for them in a way they can see it, and more importantly, that they can comprehend it. And here's the key thing. Now, if I don't have the trust in the beginning, what do they hear from me? Why? The wall's up. And so the comprehension is not there unless I have what? The fundamentals of trust, right? For them to feel understood, to feel heard. And so this is why discovery is so important. A lot of people, I think, are just naturally weak on discovery because you're trying to get to the presentation. The problem is if it doesn't go deep enough, they don't feel you enough, they're not going to hear what you're saying. We call that what? Bulldozing. And so if I bulldoze you into the process, they don't hear anything that we're saying, which is why the comprehension's not there. And so you'll know in your mind when you go deep enough, boom, you got the key to unlock it. I got 2 or 3 things I need to say to be able to help them. I found out what's important to them, what their previous experience was, the timeline, all that stuff, and now I can roll into this part. But if I do that without going deep enough, that becomes a major issue and lots of resistance happens, which is why they don't hear what I'm saying. And so why would they go to the friend who sold 1 house over the people who sold 7,000? Trust, that's it. That's the only reason. And so for me, I have to understand, like, okay, how do I get better at trust? Number one, I got to be trustworthy. Right? Which means I got to make sure I'm owning up, I'm showing up with certainty, showing up with energy, showing up prepared, and I got to make sure that I'm not doing any small stuff, right? If I show up 5 minutes late, what happens to trust? Gone. They don't trust it, right? So it's important to understand that in all those pieces.